The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the new home for Autism Live. We're thrilled to be here. We take up space at the headquarters for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, CARD. We're big fans of theirs. Thrilled to be here with you on this Tuesday morning. We got a lot that we're going to be covering today. We've got a news story that is making my head spin, like the top of my head come off and spin around the room. So if you enjoy watching when I get fatutzed, stay tuned because I'm fatutzed. And it's been that kind of morning already. We'll share more as we go through. But thrilled to have the privilege of being with you guys here on this wonderful morning. We're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective, looking at all the different things and the ways this journey touches our life in a smaller sense and a bigger sense. And we welcome everyone who wants to be here. Our autism community is big, it's beautiful, it's called a spectrum because there's a lot of different things going on in the spectrum. You know, for the first time the other day, I had a conversation with my son where he said to me, why do they call it the spectrum? And we had a discussion about how there are so many different people and how they have different needs and they have different strengths. And so that's why we call it the spectrum. So, and in that spectrum, I include all of the support as well. It is, of course, first and foremost, welcome individuals who are on the autism spectrum, but you know, I welcome as well the parents, I'm one of those, the teachers, I'm one of those, the therapists and caregivers and the different people who add to this community who care so deeply. I think that's all part of our community as well. So I welcome all of you. We hope that you have come here to find some hope, maybe some inspiration if we're doing our jobs really well, and a forum in which you can ask questions, which brings me to my next thing. Our entire show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you will participate with us. Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate. And while he does that, I always like to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. There are a lot of things to do there. You can definitely watch the live show there. All you have to do is click on the triangle that's on the computer screen. If you do that and you happen to click during the hours that we're live, you can be watching the live show. If it is not during the time that, because you know we're on live 2 hours a day, 3 times a week, and if it's not during those times, then what you'll have the opportunity to do is see the most recently recorded live show. If you want to go back through our archives, you can certainly do that on the other sites where we're hosted, but you can also do that on our homepage. There's a playlist, excuse me, a playlist button up in the upper left-hand corner of the computer screen. You can watch the 100 most recent shows that we've recorded by clicking on that. And you can pause them, you can fast forward, you can rewind, all of those lovely things. But always, whether you're watching us live or recorded, there is the live feature. That's to the side of the computer screen on our website. If you put your cursor in the box that says your question, all you have to do is type, hit enter, and you and I can be having a conversation. Or you can have a conversation and ask questions of our experts. Now you might think to yourself, well, but I'm watching episode, 67 episodes back, Shannon, and you definitely don't have that person live in the studio right now, so how can I ask them a question? But the truth of the matter is if you ask a question, we will hunt them down. It does take a little bit longer than the immediate gratification thing, but we will hunt them down and share with them the questions that you guys are asking. And by the way, it's all free. You don't have to have a username. There is no password. There is no credit card information. information. It's completely anonymous. I just ask, and here's the thing that I beg you for, when you put your question in, if it's about something that you've seen on the show, make sure that you are as specific as possible. Shannon, I was watching the March 13th show of 2012, and I saw Dr. So-and-so on the program, and they said this, and I'm wondering, right? Because otherwise I have no way of knowing. If you just say, well, what does he mean by that? I can't, I gave up mind reading to be an autism parent. I know it was a choice, but I had to do it because I wanted to be here with you guys. Which, talk about a segue, brings me to my next point. We have a lot of experts who are on the show. As long as you will remember that I am not one of the experts, I'm an autism parent. My son was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, and we started intensive ABA at the age of 3 from the best possible place that I know to get it, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And what a journey, and how grateful am I? I know Wednesday is the gratitude day, but I think we can be grateful every single day. I'm so grateful. And by the way, we didn't get the great services that we got because I was so smart and knew about it or knew where to research. No, we got access to the things we got access to, and we persevered because we were surrounded by people who cared and gave us good information. That's really why I'm here. I hope that I can do that for you, give you the information to have you know you can do this. Whatever it is that you want to accomplish, you can accomplish it. And there are people that want to hold your hand while you're doing it. They want to help you to get what you need to get, right? I'm one of those people, and I want to connect you to other people. That's what I'm here for. That's what I hope this whole show is about. You know what I say, we hold hands, si se puede, right? Okay. We like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out, what are the experts talking about, and what does this have to do to me, and why? What with me, and why should I care about this? Why should I waste the time to learn something new that's just a silly jargon term? Because a lot of times it's going to save you time, money, energy, and get you to that progress that you need. So hard to believe, but we've never done this term before, ADA, even though we had one of the original authors on one of our sister shows a couple of weeks ago. Tony Coelho was on during an episode of The Future is Bright with Stephanie Schaefer. If you've not watched it yet, I want to encourage you to watch it because he tells his story. He is now an advisor for the Hillary Clinton campaign, but he's one of the original authors of ADA, and he talked about why it was so important to him. So what is it? You want to know, what is this and what does it have to do with me, Shannon? Okay, I'm getting to it. Okay, our actual definition of ADA, it's Americans with Disabilities Act. That's what ADA stands for. It's a law passed in 1990 that bans discrimination against people with disabilities. Its language requires equal opportunities in education, public accommodations, employment, and other areas. Okay, that's all pretty fabulous, but when it comes right down to it, what are we talking about? Our working definition for this, it's the legal right to equal opportunity regardless of ability. And if we take it down a notch further, it's interesting that more and more fights that families are having with school services. We've always before talked about IDEA, and because IDEA was pivotal in creating the free appropriate public education and ideas like least restrictive environment. And so it has been the typical that when families go in and are fighting with a school district to get services or to get something changed, that they, for the longest time, have gone in and fought under IDEA, the laws under IDEA. And we're seeing a shift right now that ADA is very powerful, and we're seeing a shift that lawyers are now telling families, look, we're going to fight this under ADA. We are seeing in Georgia that there are there are a couple of lawsuits happening in Georgia where they are fighting about least restrictive environment. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all shakes down. I think, to have both in an arsenal, to realize when you are talking with, whether it's a school district or a work opportunity, something along those lines, to have both in your arsenal is very, very wise. So ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and definitely check out that interview with Stephanie Schaefer and Tony Coelho on our site. It's under the Future is Bright playlist. I hope you guys take an opportunity to look at that. All right, we always have a question of the day for you, and our question for you today is, do you ever feel like the deck is stacked against you or your child? And if so, how so? We talk a lot about what's fair. And I love to quote that cartoon that is so popular where it shows equality and justice. Because I think a lot of people in the neurotypical world think we're asking for equality. And we could ask for equality, but that's not really, we're asking for equal opportunity. And when we talk about equal opportunity, for me, that's under justice. And so there's a cartoon that shows three little boys, I think it's at a track meet, and there's a curtain that's set up in front of them on two posts. And it shows the boys trying to see over the curtain to see what's happening at the track meet. And one little boy is gifted with being a little bit taller. So he is able to see completely over the curtain and see exactly what's going on. The next little boy, not as gifted in the height area, so he's significantly shorter. The curtain comes right like at eye line to him, so he can see a little bit, but even on tiptoe, he can't see 100%. And then there's the little boy who is significantly shorter, and he's standing there and all he can see is curtain. He cannot see what's happening in front of him. And the caption underneath says equality. This is equal. They're all standing on the ground. The curtain is there. This is equality. They're all getting the same thing. But they don't have the same opportunity. Right? So the justice one shows the three little boys standing on risers. So the first boy, who's tallest, he could see already, he doesn't get a riser. The second boy needs a small riser to be able to see everything. And then the third boy needs a substantial riser, but once he's given that, he has the exact same view as the other two boys. That's equal opportunity. That's justice. And I think sometimes when there have been times in this journey where I have felt like the deck was stacked against me and stacked against my son, so that it was set up in a way that we couldn't possibly succeed. I felt that way. I always remembered to ask myself, what are we going to do about it, right? Instead of just going, okay, well, then it's time to go home, because I don't believe in that. But I certainly felt like the deck was stacked. Sometimes it means educating the person who's stacking the deck and saying that's not entirely fair. That's not entirely right. And it doesn't have to mean getting a lawyer. Sometimes it just means educating somebody. The other day I happened to be in a bank that I hadn't been in probably 10 years. And I had a hat on, I think, that said something about autism. And the teller said, oh, do you have a connection to autism? And I said, yes. And he talked about the fact that at his church, he worked with individuals who had autism. And he said, it's so sad to me that people don't understand. And people often think that kids with autism are being brats, or that they have a choice. And he said, it's really, really sad to me that people don't get it. And I said, oh, it's so funny because I haven't been in this bank in a really long time. But one of the last times that I was here, I recall standing in line. And the gentleman who was standing in line in front of me, I had my son with me, and he was very small at the time. And the gentleman who was standing in front of me was very impatient. Let's say that. You know how you can tell when people, they're shifting from leg to leg and they go, right? And Jem, we were having to wait a really long time at the bank, and Jem kept, pulling on my arm, moaning, and then laying on the floor. And I had to pick him up and say, no, we don't lay on the floor in the bank. And this guy was just, You could tell that he really had a lot of thoughts and feelings about how I was parenting and what my child was doing. And eventually I picked Jem up and I said, you know what? You're doing such a good job. I know how hard this is for a little boy and a little body to have to wait. This is hard for all the adults waiting too. We are all getting very frustrated having to wait. And I know that you're a little boy who doesn't have language yet. And I was talking to my son, but I was talking to the man in front of me to realize you need to grab a giant whoopee. And at one point I said, I know it's hard, and I know for a little boy with autism, this is really hard to have to wait, because it's hard for the adults that don't have autism to be patient and wait. And Jem kind of settled down, and the guy, I could only see his back, and he was a big guy, and you just saw him take a breath, and everything kind of settle in place. And the heavy breathing stopped, and at one point he turned around and he acknowledged me and acknowledged Jem and smiled at him. So I told this to the bank teller. I said, yeah, just in this very lobby, I had this run-in with this guy, not run-in, but this sort of moment. But I remembered feeling in that moment, it's so unfair that my child has to deal with this. And quite honestly, I thought to myself, it's so unfair that not only do I have to find the way to deal with my son, but I have to find the way to deal with these people who are just not patient. It's part of the journey, educating ourselves, educating our families, and educating the world around us. It's not necessarily fair, but it is what it is. So anyway, when have you felt like the deck was stacked against you? Let's talk about it. Let's maybe we can problem solve a little bit about what we can do when we're feeling that way. Because we do have rights. We do have laws that stand up for us. And there are things that we can say before we get all legal schmeagle. There are things that we can say to people that remind them, you're not having to deal with the same things that our kids are having to deal with. So you can grab a big old whoopee. Technical term, grab a whoopee. Okay, so that's our question of the day. We always have a topic for the day and for the week. And this week's topic, this came directly from Howie Mandel, who we kind of love. We love Howie Mandel anyway because he's hilarious and he's wonderful. And Howie Mandel said this on America's Got Talent. They recently had one of their finalists, I think he came in second place, was a young man who had a brain injury and so stutters, but he does stand-up comedy and is brilliant. He's hilarious. His timing is beyond impeccable. And Howie Mandel said one night in the show, he said, we need to stop talking about disability. It's not disability, it's this ability. And start looking at things different. And at some point, I'm having t-shirts made. So we loved Howie before he said this. Then we loved Howie that he said this. And then he's always been somebody who's been an advocate for autism. And he was given an award this last year at the Denim and Diamonds for Autism event. And Howie was so amazing. It's an event to raise money for grants. And he was there getting an award, but he really, I was there for part of the behind the scenes. He was like, what can I do to help? That's always the space that he comes from. And he and Nancy had a conversation. They went out on stage. They were auctioning something off. And it was the dress that Nancy was wearing. They were auctioning it off. And it wasn't getting as much money as it should have gotten because, first of all, Nancy looked great in it, but Nancy's a Barbie doll and the rest of us are not Barbie dolls. I'm just saying. And so it wasn't getting as much interest as it might have otherwise from the people who weren't Barbie dolls. And so Howie decided to sweeten the pot by taking off his pants and saying, I will auction my pants. First he said, I'll auction my pants. And somebody said, well, you got to take them off right now. I want to. So he did. He dropped trow at this, black tie event and was kind of amazing and raised a lot more money. So in honor of Howie and in honor of the fact that it's brilliant, we're talking all this week about shifting our minds and not thinking in terms of disability, but thinking in terms of this ability. the comparison thing doesn't get us too far, right? Okay, so some of the different things that we have going on today. It is Self-Care Tuesday, and we're going to be taking on a task today that we're all going to love. It's going to be fabulous. Not, but we're going to do it anyway. We have a bunch of autism news. One thing that's making my head fly around the room. Another thing that's making a lot of other people's heads fly around the room. Would like to know what you guys think about it. It's not making my head fly around the room. And then a little bit later on in the show, in the second hour, you guys have sent in a bunch of questions for our unicorn. Dr. Linda Copeland is going to be with us. She is a board-certified behavior analyst, and she's also a developmental pediatrician. And we call her the unicorn because those things don't exist together anywhere else. So it's kind of amazing that we have an opportunity at the third Tuesday of every month. We have an opportunity to have Dr. Copeland with us, and she answers your questions. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to start with the thing that's making my head fly around the room, and then we'll go to the thing that might be making your head fly around the room. Let's get fatoots together and see if we can't come out a better place. All right? That and more coming up on Autism Live after these messages.
Our twins, Justin and Jessica, were premature babies, so we always were very conscientious of their development. But I think it was probably 15 months, Justin started getting really obsessive compulsive with opening and closing doors. And Justin started tantruming a lot too.
Get out! I will!
These would be major tantrums that were just completely debilitating to the family.
Having to take them out of the house, put them in the car, drive around, just to calm them down.
I remember a breaking point and just thinking, you know what, we got to do something. This is not right. Once we were on the track to getting a diagnosis for autism, we started sharing that with our close friends and family. It just so happens that somebody from our older daughter's private school called us out of the blue. She introduced herself and she says, I know that recovery is possible. Those words so early in our journey were a guiding force for us. As we got more educated in knowing what is effective therapies for kids with autism, we realized quality ABA is vital to that progress. That's where we decided that CARD was the right provider for us and for our son. Justin responded very well to therapy. The behaviors were tracked, and we saw that what was being instituted was working.
Justin, what are you doing? I'm coloring. You are coloring! Good for you!
There was real progress, and there was progress that was tangible.
I just remember when he made a sentence, he said a sentence. We were just happy about it, going, no way, I can't believe you just did that.
What's the date?
The 18th,
18th of what month?
December,
Oh, what year is it?
2007.
Oh, okay. So how old are you today then?
5!
The therapies that CARD did for Justin didn't just impact his daily living skills, but it was a positive impact on our entire family.
I'm Justin. I am in 4th grade. I like playing video games sometimes. My dream to build a teleporter machine. Like sometimes if like we're on an airplane and it's like really long, you guys just say, oh, hurry up with that teleporter machine. I'm waiting on you. And I just started Friday Night Lights. This is our 3rd game of the season, and it's pretty fun. You have to be fast.
We attribute so much of Justin's recovery to CARD. Their goal was the same as our goal. We wanted Justin recovered. June 12, 2008 is a day that I celebrate every year because that is the day that Justin was deemed recovered from autism. And Dr. Doreen Grandpichet met with us, looked at him and just said, he's brilliant. You need to keep his mind stimulated because he's very smart. and he has no residual traits of autism.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to a segment we call In the News. So there are two stories this morning. One that personally has me, my blood pressure is very high, and the other one has a lot of other people's blood pressure high, and we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so we covered a story a couple of months ago about a task force. It's the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force that makes recommendations about different things. They had come out with notification that they had done some research, and their feeling was there wasn't enough evidence to suggest that pediatricians should screen all children for autism under the age of 3. There was a comment period where the community could comment on it, and regardless of those comments, yesterday in JAMA, they published their findings. And so this is what goes out to pediatricians all over the United States, that their recommendation is that there is insufficient evidence to argue definitely that, that the benefits of screening all children for autism outweigh the harms. We have had experts weigh in on this. I don't know how many times. My question, I have a lot of questions. But first of all, I want to know what harm. I know from reading about this that they are afraid that there will be some children who will be falsely identified as being at risk, and that will cause stress on the parents. And so that's what their concern is. Well, I do want to also point out that this is this group of people. They're all volunteers. They are the same group of people. Let's see if we can put the dots together on this. They're the same group of people that sparked controversy in recent years with their recommendation that most women need fewer breast cancer screenings. So we get a sense of who these people are, and I love the phrase, follow the money. Follow the money. Why on earth would we be, and when I know of 4 women right now who are dealing with breast cancer and are dealing with a harsher version of breast cancer because they didn't get screened earlier. And I know probably 1,000 families firsthand that are dealing with autism and desperately trying to catch their children up, who every night go to bed and think, oh, if I had only known sooner, if we had only gotten help and support sooner, what could we have avoided and what could we have done? So I look at this group of people and basically think that their work probably is being influenced or funded by someone who it is not in their best interest to pay for these screenings. Can we say that? That is very likely what the issue is. What the fallout is, this is where this comes under the heading of, this is where I feel like the deck is stacked against a bunch of people. So, mom or dad or grandma or aunt goes into the doctor's office at the age of 1, and they don't know what they need to know to say to the doctor, I need for you to screen for this. And the doctor, if they listen to this task force, is not going to screen. And there are screenings that can be done when a child is 1, and then the child goes back when they're 2. And these pediatricians who read this are not going to screen again. And if the parents don't know to ask for it, then they're not going to find out until after the child is 3. And you know what? That's too late. Every single shred of evidence we see tells us that the sooner we know, the better the chance of the greatest outcome for that child to lead the most productive life. So this is horrible advice. It's unconscionable. but clearly not something outside the realm of these people. And the only way to fight this is for all of us who know better, and everybody within the sound of my voice, I know that you know better. You absolutely know better. We must rise up, use our voices, talk to the parents that you know. I know my butt cheeks get tight thinking about it as well. When I think about all the people that I know who've had children, and quite honestly, I tend to pull back for the first couple of years so that I'm not the person hovering, looking at everything that the child does and hoping upon hope for this family that they're not going to have to deal with some of the things that we had to deal with, right? And then to be in a position to say, when you go to the doctor, make sure that you ask for the screening. Let's be honest, it's not going to be appreciated. It isn't. It is not going to be appreciated. But you know what? If we don't do it, for the one family or the two families or the three families that we know that lose a year or two, that is worse. So you just need to make a point of saying it to everybody. Say it to them when they're pregnant. Say, by the way, I'm going to be reminding you because of my story that at 1 and at 2 and at 3 at those checkups that you are going to ask the doctor regardless, because I don't want you to waste any time. So say it beforehand. Say it beforehand, but let's say it. Let's not let these yahoos be the definitive end of the discussion. It makes me so mad that I hope I don't meet these people, because I would step on them with a steel pointed shoe. Unconscionable, horrible, horrible. Clearly there is some money involved there. Okay, so that's what I'm fatootzed about. But as I was on all social media over the weekend, I saw that a lot of you were very fatootzed at Rosie O'Donnell. So let's talk about this a little bit. Rosie O'Donnell, who has, does she have 4 children or 5 children? At least 2 of her children have moved into the teen years. And she said recently, in talking about how difficult the teen years are, she said, look, it's so hard that I would trade in my teenagers for triplets with autism. Okay, not the right thing to say. Not the right thing to say at all. I think we can all acknowledge that, you know, people's feelings were hurt over that. I know people who have triplets with autism, and I know the kinds of things that they go through, and it's poignant to hear something like that, right? But I want to remind everybody in our autism community of a couple of things. And yes, I'm reminded because I happen to like Rosie O'Donnell, but part of the reason why I like Rosie O'Donnell is because she has been in our corner. She has been in our corner for a really long time. Before any other stars were in our corner, she was in our corner. This was not somebody making a comment about triplets with autism who has no concept of what that would be, triplets with autism. I think she knows exactly what that is and was making a comparison to say, this is how hard I'm finding the teenage years. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's not what I would advise her to say, but I don't think she was saying it willy-nilly with no concept of what that is. Rosie O'Donnell has been generous with the autism community with her money. She's been generous with her time. She has fought so hard to have stories covered on programs that she did. She was one of the first people on The View. She, during April Autism Awareness Month, she fought and fought and fought to get an entire week of coverage just about autism. And it was the first time that there was anything of that caliber and that span. And it was, I have to say, you know, it was pivotal for me because she was one of the first people to have a young boy on her show and to sit and talk with him and interview him. And it was somebody who had recovered from autism, and he was probably 8 years old at the time. And the hope that gave so many of us, myself included, I walked in those footsteps because she put them there for me. So I'm not asking us to forgive her. I'm just asking us to put it in context. I do think it's a teaching moment to remind her and to remind the rest of the world that that's a really hard thing. But here's the other thing. former stand-up comedian and as somebody who teaches my son all the time about what is comedy, what is not comedy. And my son, you guys write in and you say, how do you get a kid to be creative? How do you get them to tell a joke, right? You have to make a lot of mistakes along the way. Jem and I talk about what's funny is usually, if we're going to dissect funny, what's usually funny is something that's true but unexpected. True but unexpected. That is when you get into comedy. There has to be an element of truth to it, and it has to be unexpected. And so often in comedy, there's a line, right? But if you don't get close to the line, it's kind of your job as a comedian to get close to the line. And that means that sometimes you're going to step over it. And I talk about that with my son all the time. He is Mr. Tell a Joke right now, and he puts things out, and a lot of times it's over the line. And I say to him, pal, over the line. And he goes, oh, gotta dial it back, right? But I want to encourage that in him because that's how he's going to find his comedic soul, right? Even people who have been doing comedy for multiple decades are going to go over the line sometimes. And I want to remind all of us that we need to, some of the things that were said about Rosie O'Donnell over the last 4 days, I just want to say to people, this is somebody who's been in our camp. We need to be a little careful about going for somebody's jugular when they make a mistake. Let's set the tone. We ask for people to be patient with our kids when they do something that isn't socially acceptable. We need to model that behavior. So I don't love what Rosie O'Donnell said. I think it was way over the line. I do, but it wasn't ill-informed, and she's been a friend. Forgiveness starts at home, right? Let's be forgiving. That's my advice. And shout out to Rosie for all the things that she has done over the years for our community. I personally have felt the benefit of her and her commitment to our kids and to our community. Misstep, yeah, but she's a comedian. It's gonna happen. All right, you don't have to agree with me. You do not have to agree with me. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back with our self-help tip for this week. Stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, Tuesdays are now our self-help day. It's a day where we're reminding ourselves, myself and everybody else, how important it is to take care of ourselves. I have seen too many families that have been touched by autism where one or both of the caregivers have developed cancer or autoimmune issues, and the ability to take care of themselves changes, like astronomically changes what has to be done. And I think it's so important, whether you've already been diagnosed with something like that or you have not been diagnosed with something like that, it's important to put in the time to take care of yourself so that doesn't happen. And so each week we're just giving one little tip, something to do that we can all do. We've said we're going to moisturize, right? We've, looked at our self-talk and how we talk to ourselves. So today, we want to talk about making one doctor's appointment. Now, you get to pick which doctor's appointment you want to make, but we all know, all of us, there is some doctor's appointment that we have thought, I should do that, but we've put it off. And it could be that you haven't gone to the dentist. It could be that you need to make an appointment for you to go talk to a mental health professional, to have even one. I'm not saying sign up forever, right? Or maybe your back has been bothering you and you need to go see a chiropractor. Maybe you've not had the pap smear or the mammogram or whatever the tests are that you need to have done. And this is not a stacking thing where you go, oh, I haven't had that, I haven't had that, I haven't had that. No. There's just one assignment for this week, and that is to make one doctor's appointment. You don't even have to go on the appointment this week. You just have to make one doctor's appointment. And then, you can take it from there. But we have to make a shift, right? And it's so funny that somebody was talking to me, texting me, a mom saying, I think I want to go and sign up for counseling. I want to see if there's something that I can do. Who are the LMFTs, the licensed marriage and family therapists that you would recommend? And do you recommend somebody who has experience with autism? And I said, well, first and foremost, I recommend that you make sure that you're going to somebody that your insurance will cover, because then I want to recommend that you go to somebody who understands what the deal is with autism. But I want to make sure that your insurance covers it, because I know how this goes. And with everything else that you have going on, we can say, oh, well, I'm going to prioritize that. I'm going to prioritize my mental health, and I'm going to prioritize the relationship between myself and my significant other. I'm absolutely going to do that. And on paper and, laying in bed at night, you're like, no, because that's important, right? But when push comes to shove and you're figuring out the household budget and you're paying to, for any kind of services or any kind of copay, and then there's, all the clothes that need to go in your child's back, not to talk about the food, suddenly the last thing on the budget is our mental health, right? So I do think it's super duper, if you're hoping to follow through on anything, make sure that it's somebody that takes your insurance. Then, look and see if it's somebody who has experience with autism and with dealing with the issues that come up around autism and getting treatment and all of those things. But super duper important, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take, as I said earlier, I know 4 women right now that are dealing with breast cancer that a large part of their day is focused on the fact that if they had only known 3 months earlier or 6 months earlier, because their treatment is much more aggressive because the cancer had an opportunity to spread. How about if we not be those people? And so just to move that dial a little bit, just one doctor's appointment. That's all I'm asking. All of us, myself included, one doctor's appointment. And then we'll see from there. But let's start with one, whichever one you feel the most comfortable with, or the one that's keeping you up at night that you keep thinking, ugh, I really should have made that appointment. Ugh, I really don't want to go. I'm afraid of what I'm going to hear. Because more often than not, you're going to go and you're going to be told, no, everything is okay. And then that's a big hot rock that you can put down. And then you can move on to the next hot rock, but you can put that big hot rock down. And if the worst case scenario, it's that you need to go because you needed to find out information because something needed to happen, it's always better if you get it earlier, always. So one doctor's appointment, that is our self-help tip. But we want you to continue on with all the other ones. You're drinking your water, you're meditating, you're doing good self-talk, and you're moisturizing. And you feel better. All right, we are going to take a break, and we're going to be back with some of the questions that you guys have written in, so stick with us. Currently in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Granpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. We really appreciate when you guys write in questions and comments. Somebody wrote in and said, hello, Shannon. I'm a mother of a 6-year-old with moderate autism, and I would like to know how you handle the times when your child has tempers in public. And you can go about your business because you can't go about your business because you have to take him home. How do you handle bad outbursts? Yeah, such a good question. And I love it when we have our experts that are here and answer about how we deal with temper tantrums. But, you know, my thing always is, okay, but how does that look in real life? How does that look when I am in the aisle in the grocery store and I need the things that are in my cart? And I've told the story before about there were a couple of years, there were at least 2 different times that I can remember that in the spring, something would happen to my son and we would get a little bit of regression. I don't know whether he was like allergic to some of the things that were happening, but we'd get a little bit of regression in the beginning. We don't so much anymore. You know, like now it's like I might get one discussion with him where we have to straighten things out, but it's nothing like it used to be because he used to have the massive tantrums. But it would always be in the spring. And at 1 year, he was punching me in the head. He was little still, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And I came to my clinic at Card and said, I'm not leaving until somebody helps me because something bad's going to happen, right? He would wait till we were in public, and then he would just go to town on my head, and I couldn't handle it. I just couldn't handle it. And they brought in 2 specialists, one of which was Art Wilkie, who is like the nicest, sweetest man on the face of the earth, but he's an expert in how to defend yourself and contain a person when they've become violent. And he actually goes to the different offices and trains people at the different Card offices now in terms of how to do this. And they brought him into my clinic and had him show me some different moves that I could do. It's almost like a karate class where you're learning how to block and prevent yourself from being hit in the head or in the throat, or, because our kids can get very violent. And he was starting to get bigger then. I was still much bigger than him, but I kept saying, we need to get this under control before he's 15 because I won't be able to deal with this. And if you watched last Wednesday's show with Vena Tiero, that happened to her with her older child. Okay, so Art started showing me, and he was saying, when does this happen? And I said, a lot of times it happens in the grocery store. And he's in the shopping cart, and I'm trying to push the shopping cart, and I'm just, a punching bag. And then I take him out to the parking lot, and now to get him out of the cart, I have to use 2 hands, pick him up. Where are his hands? Pummeling my head, right? I need to get him into the car seat, and it's a 5-point harness. And so I'm leaning over without great core muscles, trying to get him into the 5-point harness, and his hands are free and pummeling my head like it's a basketball. And I said, so help me, Art. And he went through the whole thing, this whole big scenario for me of showing me, what I could do to get him out of the cart and to get him into the seat and into the thing. And I just kept getting madder and madder as he was showing me. And he could tell there was like this thin thing of steam raising from my head. And he said, what? He knew me, and he was like, what's going on right now? You got a lot going on right now. And I just started yelling at him going, where is my purse in this scenario? Because part of what was happening was not only was I having to deal with the kid pummeling my head, but I had this big old pocketbook that had everything imaginable in it, right? And so I'm, like trying to get out of the cart, and I can't leave it in the cart. I'd already had one purse stolen out of a cart while I was dealing with him. And Art just had this look on his face, and he said, is that what the problem is? I said, well, it's one of the problems. And he said, oh. And he said, well, you're just going to get a fanny pack for a while. It's not going to be very stylish. You're not going to, but you're just not going to be able to carry a purse until we get this under control. Now, I didn't know what to say to that, because then I felt foolish. Like, why hadn't I thought of that? But I tell the story because first of all, it shows how difficult it is for us in the moment, and how difficult it is for the people helping us to be able to get to all the different variables that are going on. But it also shows the level of problem solving we have to get to in order to solve this. So, of course, there's stuff that we're going to work on at home before you're out in public to set the stage and to teach the lessons that you need to teach, so that it's less likely that you're going to have that stuff happen in the moment when you're in the grocery store, right? So there's going to be a whole lot of prep stuff that you're going to do, but then there's the stuff that you do when it happens, and then there's the stuff that you do after it happens. And really the prep goes in 2 different categories for me. There's like stuff that you're doing to make sure that it doesn't happen, and there's stuff that you're doing to make sure that you can act accordingly if it does happen. So let's talk about the category of stuff that you're doing to ensure that it doesn't happen. You're making sure that you heap tons of praise on your child for all the things that they do that are right. And that starts at home, where you have more control over it than you do in public, but then you want to spread it to the public, that every time your child does something that's right, praise, 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 praise. I know you would have thought that I was going to say the other one, right? But it isn't as effective. All the studies are in. We don't have to question anymore. Praise is more effective at getting in the behavior that we want than punishing. So praise, praise, praise every time they do something right. When they do something that is not good behavior, then we have to take a second and think, okay, what are they trying to get? And whatever they're trying to get, we give them the opposite. So if they were trying, but you have to stop and think through it this way. If they were trying to get your attention, then we give them the opposite. And what's the opposite of giving them attention? Giving them no attention. Get very busy with something in front of you. It can be just, looking at the tissue and doing this. It's not that you're ignoring the child, you're just not giving them attention. You're still in the room, but I like to get very busy with very small stuff right in front of me so that they're very clear that I'm not looking at what they're doing. But I'm not ignoring, right? That's a very different thing. And I'm not putting them someplace where I can't see them because they're going to escalate it a little bit. Okay, if they were doing it to get access to something, like what they wanted was a lollipop, then you give the opposite, which is no lollipop. And by the way, don't give it a whole lot of attention. Don't stand there, I am queen of wanting to do this. I'm not giving you the lollipop. And do you know why I'm not giving you the lollipop? I'm not giving you the lollipop because you didn't do it. Now I'm giving it attention, right? No. So they're like, I want the lollipop. And you're, there's no lollipop. And you're doing something else and you're straightening things up. There's no lollipop. And don't give it attention. They might be doing it to escape something because they wanted to get out of doing something. So you give them the opposite. If they wanted to get out of doing it, you make them do it. You don't harm them in making them do it, but you make them do it. And the last thing, that it could possibly be is that they're engaging in the behavior because it makes them feel good. And in that case, we don't want to ignore it. We want to give them something else that makes it feel good. So if the child is enjoying punching my head because it feels good to punch mom's head, and I've sectioned out the attention, and they didn't get a reward for it, there was no lollipop for it, but it just feels good punching my head, then we want to get that kid a punching bag. And we want to take a pillow and they can punch the pillow so that they're getting that need met, but it's not, my face. Okay, so you have to know what it is, and whatever it is that they want, you're giving them the complete opposite, although with automatic reinforcement, which is the one that it feels good, you're going to give them something that's appropriate. But you're for sure not letting them, you're blocking so that they cannot punch you in the face. Okay, so, and we want to teach our child whatever skill is missing, like whatever started the tantrum, if it was that they didn't want to wait, they didn't know how to ask appropriately, we're going to give them whatever skill that is and heap the praise on when they engage in whatever that skill is. Okay, so we've done all that homework. Now, you're looking at it and it sounds like it's happening when you're in public and it's someplace that you can't leave, and you brought up the grocery store. So now we have to do the prep for in case it happens, which means that for a period of time, while you're going to say, I'm going to work on this. This is kicking my keister enough that I wrote in on the show about it, so I'm going to target this behavior. It means other programs, maybe we're going to worry a little bit less on. Maybe we're working on shoe tying and that's stressful to your child, but you say, no, I'm going to work on proper behavior in public and no tantrums in public. So shoe tying doesn't go completely away, but it's not the focus of your time and energy, right? You're going to need to get somebody, your significant other or your mother-in-law or a babysitter or somebody to stay with your child. You are going to go to the store and get everything that you could possibly need for the next week or two so that all your shopping in order to survive is done. And then you're going to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning if you need to, because that's when your child is sleeping and somebody can be there and watching them, but you're going to make the time to do that. You are going to make sure that you are rested, that you are in your best, and that you have had good things to eat, and that you are taking care of yourself, because you cannot do this intervention unless you are in a good headspace, right? So you're going to get all that stuff on board. And so you've got the stuff that you need at the grocery store, and you're rested. Now you go to the place where the tantrum is most likely to happen, and you're setting up the circumstances knowing, they might very well have a tantrum. You're going to say to your child, you're going to put something in place before you go into the store saying, we're going into the store and here are the rules. And you can have it on a visual reminder, and have pictures or text, whatever your child understands. And you can have like a column of these are the do's and these are the don'ts. So there won't be any kicking or hitting. There won't be any yelling, whatever. And on the good side, listening when mommy asks you to do something, keeping your hands to yourself or whatever. You can, however you decide to do it, right? And you have some sort of a token system. And you don't want to expect perfect behavior. So let's say that you've got these 3 things over here that they cannot do, and if they do them, there's a consequence. So you've got 3 little stickers there, and so if they do one of them, you rip the sticker off. But if they still have 1 sticker by the time you leave the store, they get a treat that's meaningful to them. There's 1 sticker, so they can make 2 mistakes, and if they make 1, they still get the treat. And over time, you're going to up the ante, make sure that treat is really wonderful, but the next time you go to the store, they have to get 2 or they don't get the treat. And eventually they have to get all 3. And as quickly as you possibly can, move to the positives. That, are you doing this, this, and this? And if you are, then you get the treat. You have to make it super easy for them in the beginning so that you have to create a circumstance in which they actually can earn the treat. Because very quickly they'll go, oh, it's so much less fun having the tantrum than it is getting the treat. Later on, 6 months from now, you can make the treat every other time. But don't rush that. Like, get the behavior on board and get them used to it, and then make it a random thing. And eventually, my child goes to the store and there's no treat anymore. I know everybody gets worried and like, oh no, they're going to want a treat every single time for the rest of their life. We go to the store all the time. There are no tantrums and there are no treats, but we had to do this. We had to tear it down. But okay, so you've put all this in place and you've offered the treat, and there are going to be times when they're not going to get it right, where they're going to go ahead and throw the tantrum because it's the old behavior and they're not sure about the new behavior yet. So you are going to encounter that. What happens is, they start to have the tantrum, they're in the full-on meltdown, and if they are receptive language, you can say, if this happens, we're leaving. But you don't have to. If you do say it, it's got to happen. So the child starts to have the tantrum, and then you pick up the child and you leave the store, or you take the cart and you leave. They are going to be swinging because that's not what they want. And I do encourage you, there are trainings in on IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training, ibehavioraltraining.com. I think it's like $8, and you can watch a video of learning all those things that Art taught me about how to protect yourself and how to protect your child so that nobody physically gets injured, and how to get them into the car seat. But the thing is, you got to leave. And you can, because you did all your shopping before. And there may be times that, maybe it's a birthday party that you're at and you're like, but I really don't want to leave. And I hear that and I get that. And here's what I want to say to you. You have to put yourself in a circumstance where they know you mean business. Now, I firmly believe, and the behaviorists will not agree with me on this, okay? But I can think of one birthday party where I had gone over the rules with my son beforehand. We went to the birthday party, huge infraction, and I said, we're out of here, kicked, screamed, whatever. I got him out to the car, we drove away, and I didn't speak to him while he was, hysterical. But we got maybe a mile away, and he was learning, Mom isn't going to hear what I have to say until I get calm. So he cried a little bit, and then he said, Mom, I want to talk to you about, right? And that's language that he was doing at this age. And I pulled the car over, because you don't want to be driving your car while you're having these intense things. And I said, okay, as soon as you're calm, we can talk. He got himself together, and he said, I am sorry. And he said, and I said, I know that you are, but we had the rules. And he said, but I want to go back to the birthday party. Now, I am a firm believer in, if they acknowledge what they did, and you've already gone through whatever, and you have to leave. Here's the important part of it. You have to leave. You said we were going to leave. You left. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like that's all that's going to happen. But if they can identify and say, I'm sorry, and I don't want to do that again, and that requires a child with language or the ability to have functional communication, right? But if they can say, I know what I did, and I'm not going to do it again, then there's room for negotiation. The behaviorists will tell you no, follow through. But, I believe teaching them, okay, you made a mistake, you lost, and I'm going to give you another chance. I believe in that. It's been very successful for me with my kid. So you take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, and then we went back to the party, and smooth sailing. And guess what? He never did that at another birthday party again, because he knew we will leave. She means business. That woman's crazy, and she will leave the party that she wants to be at, and she will take my butt home. So we don't have that anymore, ever, since then. It's going to require you getting 100% clear, you getting 100% focused, getting whatever prep you have to have so that you can, and unemotional, by the way. This is not the, I told you, so we're not, we're leaving right now. It's just, pick up the child and you're gone. They get it. They understand. And if they are at an age where you can't pick them up anymore, definitely do the IBT so that you understand how to protect yourself, how to protect other people, how to protect your child so that they don't get hurt as you are motoring them. And that's literally what they call it, motoring them out to the car, getting them in the car, getting them into the 5-point harness or into the seatbelt or whatever it takes. It's hard. Boy, I remember us targeting that and how hard it was for me, but worth it. I only dealt with it for a very short period of time because we got on this and changed our behavior, which then changed his. You can do this, right? If you need some more help. All right, we have to take a break. I'm over time. It's time for the A word, and you can see some of the tantrums that Jack Riley throws, which, by the way, he's not throwing any of those anymore, which is a wonderful thing. We love, 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 love this family. Take a look, and then when we come back, we're going to be joined by Dr. Linda Copeland. She's going to be answering questions that you guys wrote in earlier in the week and even last month. So stick with us. Here's the A word.
Great and awful.
Yeah, it's great progress and it's hard to get used to. Last Friday was rough for him. At the end of the second week, he had a rough. I think every session was rough for him.
Mickey's doing really well. Like I held up a green marker to him last night and asked him what color, and he said green.
Yeah,
no prompting.
Unprompted.
And black did the same thing.
Black and blue and green, he's doing okay.
The fact that he'll say colors without us telling him first, that's huge. But
he's trying to say everything.
It is.
He tries to say tangled.
Oh, yeah.
He says cars really well, of course.
You say tangled? Tangled.
Oh, yeah.
You say Bambi?
Oh, Bambi! Yeah, Bambi's fun. I'm excited that he's talking so much.
He's got a lot to say these days.
Aww.
Say red. Good talking.
Red is always hard for him, so that's awesome. He usually just says bleh for red. He'll just vocalize something.
Just whatever comes out.
They like it when I say something, so I'll say something.
And he's so quick to do it now.
You want the doll? Oh, she's pretty. Kiss her. Give her kisses.
Aww.
Give her kisses.
Clinic is where therapists come on the team together, as well as the supervisors and the parents and the child. And it's a great way to talk about his progress, and if the parents have concerns about the programs that we're doing or problem behaviors that come up. It's just a great way for us to have communication with each other and be on the same page so we're consistent with everybody that's involved, parents, therapists, and supervisors. Oh, you found it. What is that?
Oh no.
What is it? Guitar, yeah?
Guitar.
So we're having him demand for things, meaning we're having him request for things, and if he knows the label, we're having him say the label. So, I mean, approximations are okay, but as long as he's asking us for something, instead of having us just give it to him, so that requires him to talk even more. Which book do you want? Which one? Mickey book? Whoa! Do you want the Mickey book or the Thomas book? Which one? Jack Riley? No. Hey, kiddo. Which one? Thomas book or Mickey book? No. Which one, Jack Riley? No. Do you want the guitar? Guitar? Yeah? Okay. All right. That's okay. Here. Look. Look. We're going to show Suzanne that you know what a car is. Okay? Here. Touch car. Good. What is it? It's car. Okay, what is it? Good job. Good job, kiddo. You gotta look better though, okay? Let's sit up and look at it. There we go. Wow, you gonna show Suzanne the car?
Vroom, vroom.
Touch car. Good. What is it? What is it? Say car. Good. What is it? Good job. Oh, that's Suzanne.
Hi.
Hold on.
Oh, you want to see? You can't see yourself. You got to be on the other side, silly.
Woohoo! See? Do you see yourself? Yeah. Wow.
Oh.
Really? He's doing a lot of talking by himself. No way. I know. He wants to have a conversation so badly today.
I know.
I know. You got a lot to say today. How else do you feel? Huh? How else do you feel today? Do you feel happy? Touch car. Good job. What is it? Car. Very good. Say, look, Dad, I did it. I did it.
Good job.
No?
What are you calling that if you say touch the thing in your hand?
Oh, what we're doing is we're having one of the objects is one of the labels that we want, which is car, which is what we're working on, and we have a distractor. So we want to see the object that we're focusing on with something else to see if he actually can discriminate between the two. So I mean, so our goal is just to see if he can pick the right object, basically. Touch. Hold on. Touch. Hold on. Hold on, wait a minute. Okay. Ready? Okay. Touch car. No, try again. Try again, okay? Okay. Last one. Touch car. Yeah, touch it though. Touch car. Good, what is it? What is this? What is this? Yes, car. Okay. Someone helping him to stop? Okay. Yeah. Hi.
That's the first time I've seen him really say hi. Well, he's very interested in
Did he just say hi?
He just looked at her and said hi.
He did.
And he looked at him and he said,
No, he doesn't. That's seriously.
I've never seen him
heard
say
him
hi
say
to
hi.
anybody, that's like the first thing we wanted to say to our families and stuff. Is to say hi. He says bye-bye.
Okay, come on, buddy.
let's go. Go, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So that was the A word at the very beginning of the series. I definitely encourage you to check out this entire series. It's available on YouTube, and you can watch as the family begins ABA and what they think it is and what it's going to be like and how hard it is in the beginning. And then over the years, how he learns so much that it becomes a part of their world. And you can watch it through now, even to the point where you can see when they stopped ABA therapy. So, because Jack Riley is just doing so brilliantly. So I encourage you to check that out in its entirety. Had a couple of more news stories here that I wanted to alert you guys to. The first one, the IACC, which is the International Autism, what does it stand for? I hate it when they do things like that. International, I can't even remember what it's called, but it's the IACC. How terrible is that I'm having a brain bubble? Anyway, they're having a conference call this Friday. It's happening Friday, February 19th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It's the National Institute of Mental Health. If you are in Bethesda, Maryland, you can go to it, but there is a free webcast that's available. And the conference, it's a workshop, a scientific workshop, very interesting to me. The title of it is Loss of Skills and Onset Patterns in Neurodevelopmental Disorders, Understanding the Neurobiological Mechanisms. So if any of you have had a child regress into autism, this may be of interest to you. Again, it is free. The videocast is available for you at videocast.nih, which is National Institute of Health, nih.gov. So again, that's videocast.nih.gov. There is a phone number where you can just listen in if you want to listen in. That number is 800-369-2126. There is an access code that you need to put in to be able to listen to it, because it's one of those free conference calls. So again, it's 800-369-2126 is the phone number to call. Your access code is 219-3178. And it says the agenda is to discuss the state of science with regard to onset patterns in ASD and related disorders, including developmental regression and the biological mechanisms that may account for these onset patterns. Consideration will be given to model systems and cutting-edge methods that may afford opportunities for a better understanding of the neurobiological pathways that result in deviation from typical development trajectories or loss of previously attained developmental or cognitive skills. See, to me, this is like right in the neighborhood of what happened to us. The goal of the workshop will be to identify research gap areas and opportunities. Ultimately, a better understanding of the mechanisms underlying onset patterns in neurodevelopmental disorders may lead to the identification of targets for efficacious, there's a word for you, prevention and treatment strategies. Okay, so again, that is happening this Friday, February 19th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is being brought to you by the National Institute for Mental Health. I got notification because I get notification from the IACC. Okay, and then another story. We talked to you last week about the horrible state of affairs because of a lack of funding in Northern Ireland. And there's some good news that has come out this week that the National Health Minister has pledged an extra £2 million to be used to speed up diagnosis. So everybody is delighted. I mean, could there have been more money? Sure, but this is an unprecedented amount of money in Northern Ireland to be spent on autism. So we're thrilled about that. They're saying that there are 300 children currently waiting for more than 12 months for an appointment in Northern Ireland to be diagnosed. That's unconscionable. In fact, they use the word unacceptable, and that there are parents that have waited over 2 years. They said we did a survey of about 70% of families who are waiting over a year. The wording of the statement indicates that this is recurrent money, so that it won't be just a one-time thing. And they've said this is the greatest single investment in autism services ever for Northern Ireland. It does not mention adults. There's no mention of transitions when children are leaving school or day centers and what that means. And so we'll look forward to see what that is. But it is a step in the right direction. We want to say congratulations to all the people who advocated in Northern Ireland to make sure that those families could get services. Congratulations. All right, we're going to take a break, and then it is my understanding that we'll be joined by Dr. Linda Copeland, the unicorn. So stick with us.
Everyone, welcome back. For the month of February, I thought it'd be a great idea to work on an activity that would help your kiddos identify and label emotions. And to help me out today is my good friend, Jamie.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hey there, Jamie.
Hey, how can I help?
Well, the way you can help me out is that because you're a sock puppet, you can do things with your face that I cannot do.
No way!
Totally. The way you can do it is that, you know, you have interchangeable features, which means you can make super exaggerated faces, which makes it easier for kiddos to identify them and to label them.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I have a favor to ask you.
Yeah?
Can you help us out and show us some of your faces you can make?
Of course! Here we go!
Ooh, you look super mad.
I was super mad.
Can you show us another one?
Sure.
Ooh, you look super sad.
I was super sad.
All right, can you show us one more?
One more.
All right. You look super excited.
I was super excited.
I am too. You know why? Because I really want to show everyone how to make a little buddy like you. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are googly eyes, felt, a hot glue gun, imagination, scissors, Velcro, some heavy cardstock, and a clean sock. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to grab your sock. Hopefully it's not dirty and used. It's a clean one. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take your sock, fold it in half like so, and then you're going to take your scissors and cut down. The reason we're doing this is that we're going to make an area for the mouth. The next thing you want to do is you want to trim the inside a little bit, because if you don't, it's going to have an overbite. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit off, not much. Now that this guy is ready, I'm going to take a hard cardstock or note card or whatever you have that's a piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half. And what I'm going to do with this is going to be the inside of its mouth, the kind of reinforcement so you're able to move its mouth around. So I'm going to just cut it into an oval. And don't worry, if it's a little too big, you can always trim it. With this sock puppet project, the materials we're using, like the hot glue, is not something for children. So this is something you're going to be doing by yourself and then asking your child to join in once the puppet is ready to go. All right, now that I got that out of the way, let's start gluing. I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue it on the paper. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to put that in the inside of its mouth, and then I'm going to take the sock and then pull it over the edge and cover it the glue. All right, so now that I have the bottom part done, I'm going to do the same thing to the top. So now that we have this part assembled, what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of felt and we're going to cover this area.
Say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hey, welcome back to Autism Live. We heard you. Everybody wants
macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, but we're gonna make it allergy free. But here's what's the crazy part of this macaroni and cheese. It's actually healthy.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes really good.
That's the most important part.
So we're going to start. We got our water boiling. There's so many variations on the pasta. We're using today a corn pasta. We can verify with the manufacturer that we have a GMO-free product. So let's go ahead and put that in there. And if you don't mind, stir that up for me, my friend.
Now it's sticking a little bit to the bottom.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
We maybe add a little more high heat oil and spread that around again. One thing you gotta know about gluten-free pasta, if you overcook this, it becomes mush. Let's move this guy over to the other burner so you can see what I'm doing. And now we're gonna start with the old macaroni and cheese sauce. What's great is there's a lot of choices for, different soups. And the way that I look at soups, and again, please follow the recipe on your screen right now. I don't like to measure very often. But what I like to use is a creamy butternut squash soup. So this soup is great because it adds a lot of flavor to the dish, but also gives people another serving of vegetables. With kids, we don't want to over season. Maybe with the adults, we can season some for the kids first, pull it out, serve them, and then add a little more, garlic powder or onion powder or other types of things into your dish. So the next most important thing on this recipe is we're going to add in a thickener and the faux cheese. Now some people like their sauce really thick, so you just add in more cornstarch or more arrowroot, so that's not a big deal. How's that doing? You think it's ready?
I think it's done.
Okay, so why don't we switch? I'll take that, you do that.
Okay.
And I'm going to strain this bad boy here. Here, let me turn that off.
Okay.
Or we're going to cause trouble again.
Trouble in Lisa's kitchen.
Yeah, no.
That's another show.
Don't, yeah, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get this all strained. It's a good consistency. So I'm going to check to make sure our pasta is cooked. So really you just want to make sure, just like any pasta, it's a little bit squeezy, a little bit. Nice. Dude, good job.
Hey.
We're good.
Looks yummy.
So even though the cheese is not totally melted, it's okay. Don't panic. What's important is that you're going to love this recipe once you eat it. What I enjoy most about this recipe is that it smells good, but this stuff is amazing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to serve you some up, and you can maybe blow a little bit on it so you don't burn your mouth. Sorry, I'm once a mom, always a mom.
Just like we tell our kids.
I know, right?
God, I can't wait. I'm excited.
So I'm going to give a shot of this too, but
oh my gosh, that is so good.
This is the ultimate comfort food. So
it's so
isn't
good.
it good?
And I'm not just saying that. It is really good. It literally tastes like something our kids would really like, and that sweetness is really, really, really good.
So the bonus for us is that when we're serving this to our kids, they're actually getting a full serving of vegetables in this. So instead of just eating a bunch of carbs and worthless calories, you're actually getting some good stuff in this. And we'll be back next time. I hope you join us again here on Autism Live. We're really loving the feedback, and if you have additional feedback, here's how you get it to us. You can send it to us via email at autismlive@gmail.com. On Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And also there's thousands of recipes waiting for you to discover them with pictures and different things on the Taka website. So you can hit Taka on the web, takanow.org, and we'll be back. Hopefully we'll get to do this again.
I had so much fun.
Maybe we'll have a little wine, but you got to join us next time. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
Bye guys, we're gonna keep eating.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
Always unique, totally intelligent, and
sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement. Unpredictable. That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so thrilled, we're so lucky because we have joining us via Skype Dr. Linda Copeland. We call her the unicorn, and I wrote to her yesterday and said, I hope you don't mind the nickname because it's sticking. People are writing and saying, here's a question for the unicorn. And we call her the unicorn because she is a developmental pediatrician, which is a pretty common thing, right? But she's also a board-certified behavior analyst, and that in and of itself is not as common, but there are lots of board-certified behavior analysts, but to be both of those things, that really doesn't exist anywhere except in Dr. Copeland, and we didn't think that it existed at all, so that's why she's the unicorn. But she's the real unicorn. She exists. So Dr. Copeland, we're thrilled to have you here. We love that every third Tuesday we get an opportunity to throw some questions to you from our viewers that are from a more medical point of view, but we love that you take into consideration all the behavior things that are going on as well. So I'm going to go ahead and launch in if it's okay with you.
All right.
Okay, Dr. Copeland, do you recommend glutamate to help heal the gut? And they said, thank you.
Okay, lots to think about. And the shortest answer is no, probably not. But it would be important to look at what signs of gut problems their child is showing. We do need glutamine and glutamate in our body, but just supplementing with glutamate in and of itself, there's actually people who are known to be sensitive to glutamate, and it can cause symptoms. And probably the most famous is known as MSG, monosodium glutamate, which is a natural flavor enhancer. It used to be put in a Chinese food, Oriental food a lot, and it's still used in like McDonald's chicken nuggets because it makes food taste good, but people can be really sensitive to monosodium glutamate. It can induce migraine, headaches, even the potential risk for seizures, aggravate acid reflux. Probably the question came from, we know our own body makes glutamate from the amino acid glutamine, and that is important in the lining of the gut and protecting the gut. But it has to be our own body doing it naturally. Just supplementing with glutamate doesn't seem to do the trick.
Okay, good answer. All right, and moving on, we're talking a lot about gut today. Hi, doctor. I'm not sure if you answered this yet, but is there a test to see how much the GI tract has been damaged? My child had neutropenia and chronic ear infections. I'm probably saying that wrong, but you'll correct me.
You said it right. Neutropenia is a low white blood cell count.
Okay, good to know. So a lot of antibiotics cycled the first years of her life. Also, Kawasaki disease. We have since done the GFCF diet for a couple of years to help the healing, and some autism symptoms got better after that. I want to know if I need to put her back on the diet and if that would be beneficial or if her gut is already healed enough. She is currently getting B12 injections every other day, and there is definitely a difference when I skip a few days or a week versus the days she got the shot and after.
Okay, another tough question, and the science is mixed on that, and you and I were talking about that before the show. We don't know that all children on the autism spectrum need the gluten-free, casein-free diet, but I know you were sharing your son definitely improved in his autism symptoms and started talking more. It depends on what symptoms she may be showing in her GI tract. But if there's no the best test actually as to how well the GI tract is working is if the child's growing appropriately. So if she's growing well, both in height and weight, and they're within the normal range, and if her stool pattern is relatively normal and healthy, no chronic watery diarrhea, no severe painful constipation, no blood in the stool. That's the most natural test about how well the GI tract is working without having to have invasive medical tests. Now, if she's having any of those symptoms that I mentioned, not growing well or alternating constipation, diarrhea, other problems, then it's worth talking with her doctor, and they might start with some screening blood tests to look for inflammatory markers and so forth. But it may be that her gut is healed enough she doesn't necessarily have to go back on the gluten-free, casein-free diet. So I appreciate your input, Shannon, here.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. And as I'm listening to you, it's making me think maybe I need to do more with my son. My son has been on the GFCF diet since he was 3. And we've had a couple of times where he's had something that wasn't GFCF by accident. We weren't trying to set up a challenge, but something happened. Somebody fed him something that they thought was GFCF, and then clearly we discovered later on that it wasn't, and he did have reactions. So we've stuck to it. It sounds like your child, and there's like no way that you wouldn't have known when we've seen things happen. So it sounds like your child made the transition okay, and if you're not having a whole lot of behaviors, it's significant to me about the methyl B12 shots, because if you've gone a couple of days and you see a difference in your child, that suggests to me that that's still something that's working.
Right, I would agree with that, yeah.
And because you're probably hearing the language, but I'm wondering if there's any kind of a gut reaction. I'm wondering just exactly what you said about, is there diarrhea or is there constipation, or is she holding her stomach or rocking in pain? And I would also say too that there are other diets besides the GFCF to try if you're having severe gut issues. Like that wouldn't even be the first one that I would try if it was severe gut issues.
Yeah, with severe bloating and gas, Stanford University has actually done a lot of research documenting the benefits of what's called a low FODMAPs diet, foods that are low in FODMAPs, staying away from onions and Brussels sprouts and certain things that can really make certain people very gassy and bloated.
And for people who've had like severe gastrointestinal issues, I've heard great success with the GAPS diet, which is a pretty intense thing for a family to go through. Like you have to be really prepared to go through it. But it's kind of similar to a paleo diet. It's a lot of bone broth. So anyway, I would be interested to know, like you said, what else is going on. Because diet for me is a big part of it. If we're not eating the right stuff for us, for our individual organisms, all kinds of things can go haywire. Do you agree? Have I lost you, Dr. Copeland? I think she's frozen in time. Now, there she is. Okay. I think we should take a break, and then we'll come back with the next question. Does that work for you, Dr. Copeland? She doesn't have us. So we're going to go ahead and go to break while we reconnect with her. But we've got a question about swimming coming up, so stick with us.
So we're going to do down dog next. So with down dog, there are several different ways that you can do it, and I want to show you first and then help you with yours so that we can work on what feels good for you, okay? All right, because there's no right way to do it. It's more about what your body likes, all right? So for me, what I'm going to do is start off with my hands at the top of my mat, my headlights. My fingers are aiming towards the top of my mat, and then I'm going to tuck my toes. And then my head is also going to drop, and I'm going to look between my toes. Okay. And my body should be, or hopefully, like an A shape.
Or V.
Or V, yes.
Upside down V.
Yep. And so if your quads are tight or your hamstrings are tight, you might need to bend your knees a little bit.
Send it to you.
Or if your shoulders are a little strained or a little tight, remember to push in through your feet, but also sometimes what feels really good is going down your forearms, like this. You can actually start out this way instead, it's a little easier. So your forearms rest on the floor, you still tuck your toes, and then you're still looking between your toes, but rather than being on your hands then, your weight's along your hands and your forearms. Okay? All right. So, now it's your turn. Okay? So, yep. You're going to do on your hands? Okay, yep. So your fingers are facing the front of the mat. Or are you doing forearms? Forearms? Okay, there we go. Wow, you're very bendy. Very nice. And your gaze is right here between your toes. Excellent. Very nice, Jem. Wow. Awesome. Feet are a nice distance apart. How does that feel?
Okay.
Awesome. You want to come down? Excellent. Good. Good.
Welcome back to Autism Live and to this segment where we have Dr. Linda Copeland with us via Skype. We call her the unicorn because she is both a developmental pediatrician and a board-certified behavior analyst. So always a thrill to have her with us. Kelby has taken care of our technical issues because he's like that, fabulous like that. So Dr. Copeland, welcome back. The next question we have, it says, for the wonderful unicorn. After swimming, my girl's leg/ankles get red and itchy. What can this be? It goes away after a while. She really enjoys the water, and we appreciate any direction, and thank you for your advice.
Okay, it sounds like it's quite probably either chlorine or bromine sensitivity, since those are what we usually use in swimming pools to decrease bacteria count. And chlorine sensitivity with the skin is pretty common. So to help her continue to enjoy the pool and have the same amount of pool time, it's just important to wash off with clean water immediately after getting out of the pool. Try to get the chlorine off the skin. And if the red bumps and itchiness kind of last for more than 15, 30 minutes, they could once in a while use a little bit of over-the-counter hydrocortisone cream, just very lightly, where the red rash is. That may help. There's been some promotion of this swim spray that's vitamin C in water. It might be overpriced. I haven't seen scientific studies proving there's an advantage of vitamin C in water versus just washing off with water. But those are some things they could do to try and decrease the redness and itchiness.
Okay, and then if that's what it is, the chlorine or the bromine, would it then not happen if they went into a saltwater pool?
Maybe less, yeah.
Okay.
It depends.
I know, we live in Southern California where there's pools everywhere and there's lots of things to choose from. And, you could try it and see if she goes into a saltwater pool and see if you get the same thing. I know people who've gone to great expense, and it is expensive to change their pool over from being a chemical pool to a saltwater pool. But if it's something that's within your budget and your daughter really enjoys swimming, it could be something you could consider. Okay. Hi, Shannon. Please ask Dr. Copeland, AKA the unicorn. When we changed my son's probiotic from Culturelle to Claire, his nose gets really runny. Same thing if we attempt a parasite cleanse, and they cite a product that I've never heard of before called HumaWorm. His nose gets jammed so bad we have to stop the herbs after a day. Is the runny nose from die-off or from allergies from the new probiotic/herb? And they said, thank you.
Hard to say for sure, but I would put the biggest emphasis on possible allergy, especially if it's very clear-cut, no runny or stuffed nose when they're on the Culturelle or not taking the HumaWorm. And every time they introduce the Claire probiotic or the HumaWorm, then it's back to major nose problems. I think it's more likely an allergy. There's something in those new products that probably the child's not tolerating.
You know what's interesting to me is that if it had been the reverse of that they were changing from going Claire to Culturelle, that I would have readily understood because the Claire probiotic does not have any dairy products in it, and the Culturelle has a small amount of dairy in it.
Right.
So that would have made more sense to me. So I'm wondering if they got it reversed. But I will say this, that we use a Claire probiotic on a regular basis, and it's a lot more powerful.
Yes, I was going to make that point. Culturelle is mainly Lactobacillus GG. It's apart from the fact that if the child's, casein sensitive to dairy, if they're not casein sensitive, it's very mild and gentle, and it's even used in the first year of life. Pediatricians will recommend it. Claire has many good probiotic products, but some of them are very, very strong. They're high potency.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I don't know about the humor worm, but very interesting. And I'm not about giving, even if it takes a while to get used to them, I'm not about making my child more uncomfortable. In an effort to make them better. Okay. So, next question here. Hi, Dr. Unicorn. I'm telling you, it's sticking.
It's
what does sulfur breath and yeasty breath smell like? Does sulfur breath mean the body cannot handle sulfur foods like onion? Are there other symptoms if sulfur foods are the issue? Thank you to the wonderful team at Autism Live. So appreciate with your generosity and passion to share the knowledge, and that's coming from our haircut mom.
Okay, so here we're talking about issues with the breath, and so in a general category of bad breath or halitosis, and it depends on if that is, again, associated with other symptoms in the body, like elsewhere in the GI tract, bloating, gas, abdominal pain, acid reflux symptoms like heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, or if it's just mainly the breath, halitosis. It turns out, just speaking of halitosis, just in and of itself, without any other associated symptoms, it is related to how bacteria and microorganisms in our mouth break down the food products, and they do make these volatile sulfur compounds. That's the main constituent of bad breath, is sulfur compounds. But that in and of itself doesn't mean that we don't tolerate high sulfur foods. We all need sulfur in the body, as sulfur is a vital mineral, and it's important in so many aspects of our body. But if there are other associated GI symptoms like bloating and gas, like onions, as I mentioned earlier, are a high FODMAPs food. And certain of the cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower are also high FODMAPs and can give excessive gas and bloating and then burping up. And that would be a different story. That would suggest not so much a sulfur intolerance as maybe a FODMAPs food intolerance. You need to lower those kind of FODMAPs foods. It's important. There's been some studies in autism again, emphasizing the need for sulfur. The sulfation process is part of the body's natural detoxification system. And there's a few studies that have suggested kids on the autism spectrum can actually waste sulfate in their urine, and they may benefit by sulfate supplementation. And it turns out Pellegrino water as a mineral water, is a natural source of some good sulfate, which might help detoxify and actually improve constipation. And that's in contrast to sulfite, which is more in artificial foods. It's kind of a preservative, and we don't want too much sulfite. It actually interferes with the sulfation detoxification. So a lot of canned goods have sulfite in them. Dried fruits might be dried with sulfites, I mean. Sulfates are good in autism. Too many sulfites, not good.
That's so interesting. I grew up in Saratoga, New York, which is famous for its mineral water, and they have springs all around the town that you can go and get, and it turns the rock around it orange, and it smells like eggs, And I always thought it tasted terrible as a kid. I just hated it. But my child, like a big treat for him is to drink something like a Perrier, or when we can go someplace and get a Saratoga the water, that's a big treat for him. He loves that. So that's very interesting. I didn't realize that it was good for him. And I also am thinking about this when he was little. My son had yeast issues, and you could smell it on him from a mile away. If you smelled his head, he smelled like fresh baked bread. If you smelled his feet smelled like bread. And his breath, frequently, he would be ridiculous. We called him the happy little elf because he would act like he was drunk. And if you smelled his breath, it smelled like he had been drinking some sort of sweet brandy. It had like this fruity alcohol smell to it. It was fascinating. And then we did, with our team, we did some yeast treatment with him. So he was on an antifungal and a yeast, a nystatin kind of a thing. It was diflucan. And I remember the doctor saying to me, now you want to watch for... we eliminate a lot of things from his diet, and he said, you want to watch because a day will come when we will know that we've broken through and it's time to stop the medicine. And I said, how will I know? And he said, you will know because the smell will change. And it was fascinating because the smell died down on the yeast. And then all of a sudden there was a day when he had bad breath. My kid, who'd always smelled like, apricot brandy, all of a sudden had bad breath. And that was when we stopped the medication. It was fascinating to me. And I hadn't really thought about it until you were talking about this. So would that have been a sulfur thing? Or I remember somebody saying that ketosis, when they go into ketosis, that is bad breath and smells.
You can get an odor to the breath with ketosis. And if there's significant ketosis, like a child who's developing type 1 diabetes, they'll have a fruity smell to them, but they'll look really sick, they'll be lethargic and so forth. I would think it more had to do with yeast breath, and then the yeast breath resolving, and some natural bad breath broke through and may have implied that he needed more sulfate, which he likes the mineral water.
He loves the mineral water. There we go. Okay, I hope we have time for this one last question. Hi, Shannon. They're writing to us from Rochester, New York. Have 2.5-year-old, got diagnosed in October. We are doing ABA therapy. They want CARD to be a part of their journey, and they're on the waiting list. I want to know, do you suggest any biomedical treatments? Now we are on the gluten-free and dairy-free diet and multivitamins, but can you please, they want a place to be able to reach me so that they can tell us more. But I'm wondering, for somebody just starting out, because I have said before on the show that ABA was the thing that did the most amazing stuff with my son, but we got him healthy before we started ABA, and then I felt that really contributed to our success. And we did that with some biomedical treatment. And for my son, the gluten-free, casein-free diet was good. A little later on, we tried a little bit of the specific carbohydrate diet as well. And we did a modified Feingold where we took all the artificial colors out. But I'm wondering for you, Dr. Copeland, what advice you have to somebody who is on a waiting list, getting some ABA now, but on a waiting list for CARD. What would you recommend?
Well, I think I like to go with the simplest, most straightforward, especially in a 2-year-old. So I'd look at the degree of artificial sugars and artificial dyes. I think that's a natural to get out of the diet. They've already done the gluten-free, casein-free, and they can see if their child is one of the children with ASD who respond. Apparently not all children, there's some scientific research showing not all children with autism spectrum show a response to gluten-free, casein-free, but they've already started that, and they can see if they get a response, and it can be a very healthy diet, especially if you don't go to gluten-free products that are mostly desserts. You want healthy products with a good amount of protein and fresh fruits and vegetables and so forth. So eliminating those artificial dyes, eliminating excess sugar, maybe considering a probiotic. Like you said, optimize the physical health. I think that's natural, it's inexpensive, it's something that we might do for any of our children to optimize their physical health.
Absolutely. I love, and I totally agree with all of that. I think that cleaning up the diet is so that it's healthy stuff, and it was so vital for us. There was no sugar in his diet, and there were no artificial colors and flavors. And what about organic? I really encourage families to go as organic as they can afford.
Yes, I recommend that too, and that's coming out in large-scale scientific studies from the UC Davis Mind Institute, that we know that exposure to pesticides is a risk factor for autism. We know that children with autism spectrum show subtle neuroinflammation. We know that pesticides could relate to neuroinflammation. And we know that the largest source of pesticide exposure for children is in the food. Yeah. So going organic, avoiding the dirty dozen foods that really attract pesticides, I think it's very important.
Absolutely. And you're in Rochester, New York, so you have a lot of organic farms around you. It should be fairly cost effective for you to be able to get some good organic food going on there. And yes, and I love that you brought up the dirty dozen, because those are the things that if you can't afford to get the organic one, cut them out. Cut them out. Like bell peppers, none of us need to eat a bell pepper unless it's organic ever again.
Yeah, certain foods, nectarines, and so forth.
It tends to be the things that are thinner skinned.
Yeah.
So. And definitely all the apple juice and applesauce that you put into your child, get them organic. It's really inexpensive to make
Cherries.
That shift.
Yeah.
Dr.
So
Copeland.
Apples, cherries, blueberries. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time
Shannon.
to be with us. We adore you. We're going to make you a logo that has a unicorn on it.
That's my daughter's favorite animal, even still, now that she's grown. So that makes it extra special to me.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And we will look forward to talking to you again in March. And I want to remind everybody, it's the third Tuesday of the month that we get an opportunity to be with Dr. Copeland. Thanks so much for being with us, and have a great rest of your week.
You too.
All right, bye-bye. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back to close out the show and tell you what's happening the rest of the week. It's good. Stick with us. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I want to give you a little heads up on some of the things that are happening this week. So first of all, we do not have Dr. Doreen Grandpichet tomorrow morning, but I know that at some point this week we're going to be playing the new edition of On the Spectrum with Matt Asner. That may be tomorrow morning. I don't know for sure at this moment in time. But we will have something for you in that hour. It will either be Dr. Grandpichet talking about the DSM-5, or some other fabulous programming. But then the second hour tomorrow, so thrilled that it's Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Allspaw-Jackson will be joining me, and our special guest, we're having Emily Island on the show, and she's been on many times before, but for the very first time, she is bringing her son Tom, who is an adult diagnosed with autism as a young teenager, I believe. And Tom is an amazing gentleman who is a international speaker now. We can't wait. It's the first time that he'll have been on the show. It's part of a new series that we're doing, Autism Family Portraits, where we have the opportunity to sit down with a parent and the individual who's on the spectrum. So tomorrow, for the first time, Tom Island. On Thursday, we're having Ricky the Robot back. So a great week for us. We want to make sure that you're here. By the way, check out on my Facebook, we posted a video of Jem singing 7 years ago, and you can see he's singing and doing a good job at rocking, but it's take video. That's all I want to say. Take video of your kids. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me while you're videotaping them, and one for you as well. Bye-bye for now.